I never thought I'd share this story, to be honest, because I'm still not sure how to explain what happened to me. I'm John Peterson, and this is the story of the day I died. It happened on a rainy Tuesday morning in October. I was driving to work, and it was just like any other day when another car ran a red light. I remember the screech of tires, the flash of red metal, and then everything changed. The impact wasn't painful, not really. There was a moment of intense pressure, like being squeezed from all directions, and then a strange sense of lightness. The first thing I noticed was how quiet everything had become. The chaos of the crash, the shattering glass, the crumpling metal, the blaring horns, all of it just stopped. I found myself floating about 15 feet above the intersection, looking down at my own crumpled car. It was surreal, like watching a movie scene, except I was both the audience and the main character. I could see my body slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling from a gash on my forehead. The paramedics arrived quickly. Their sirens were silent from my vantage point, but I could see the flashing lights reflecting on wet pavement in rhythmic patterns. "Sir, can you hear me?" one of them called out as they pulled my body from the wreckage. I wanted to answer, to tell them I was right here, watching them work. But I had no voice, no physical form to make myself known. I just observed as they laid my body on the ground and began CPR. That's when I noticed something strange. Each compression of my chest sent ripples through the air, like when you drop a stone into a still pond. The ripples weren't visible. They were more like disturbances in reality itself. With each wave, I felt myself being pulled backward, away from the scene. I resisted at first, trying to stay close to my body. I had a wife at home, 2 teenage kids who needed their father. I couldn't leave them. But the pulling sensation grew stronger, and suddenly I was moving, not falling, although it felt a bit like that, but I was being drawn into what I can only describe as a tunnel of light. But calling it a tunnel of light doesn't do it justice. Imagine every color you've ever seen, and then imagine colors you've never seen before, all swirling together in perfect harmony. The walls of this tunnel weren't solid. They were made of pure energy, pulsing with life and purpose. As I moved through it, I began to experience memories, not just my own, but others as well. I saw my wife Julia on our first date, but not from my perspective. I felt her nervous excitement, her hopeful anticipation. I experienced my son James's pride when he hit his first home run, felt the exact moment his self-doubt transformed into confidence. I witnessed my daughter Emma's private tears after being bullied at school, tears she had never shown me, and I felt her inner strength as she chose kindness over retaliation. But it wasn't just my family's experiences. I felt the joy of a stranger I'd passed in the grocery store who had just learned she'd been accepted to graduate school. I experienced the quiet grief of the janitor at my office as he mopped floors at night, missing his mother who'd recently passed. Each memory, each emotion was as real and vivid as if it were my own. The tunnel began to open into something else, something vast and indefinable. The best way I can describe it is like stepping into a room made of pure understanding. Everything made sense here. All the questions that had ever bothered me about life, death, purpose, meaning, they weren't exactly answered, but they became irrelevant. It was like finally realizing that all along I'd been asking the wrong questions. In this space, I wasn't alone. I sensed others around me, though they didn't have physical forms. They were more like concentrations of consciousness, each one unique and familiar at the same time. I recognized my grandfather, who had passed away when I was 12, not by sight, but by the feeling of his presence, that same mix of wisdom and mischief that I remembered from childhood. I felt the presence of my best friend Mike, who had died in Afghanistan years ago. But here, in this place, death wasn't an ending. It was more like a different state of being. The most overwhelming aspect was the love. Not the limited, conditional love we experience on earth, but something pure and absolute. It permeated everything, connected everything. I understood that this love was the fundamental fabric of reality, the force that held the universe together. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion on earth was an echo of this greater love. I felt what I can only describe as a rush of understanding. Knowledge flooded into me, not in words or images, but in pure comprehension. I understood that our lives on earth were more important than we realized, but not for the reasons we thought. Every interaction, every choice, every moment of love or fear created ripples in the universe, affecting things in ways we couldn't comprehend with our limited earthly awareness. I learned that our struggles and pain weren't punishments, but opportunities for growth. Even our mistakes and failures were valuable, contributing to a larger purpose that our human minds couldn't fully grasp. The message was clear. We were all connected, all part of something vastly larger than ourselves, and every life, every single one, mattered profoundly. In this state of pure understanding, I felt complete peace. The worries and fears that had dominated my earthly life, meeting deadlines, paying bills, fear of failure, seemed almost comical now. I saw how much time I had wasted on things that didn't truly matter, and how I had sometimes missed the real miracles: my wife's smile in the morning light, my children's laughter, the simple joy of being alive. But then something shifted. In the midst of this perfect peace, I became aware of my family again. I saw Julia pacing in a hospital waiting room, her face pale with worry. I saw my children huddled together on uncomfortable plastic chairs, Emma trying to be strong for her younger brother. The love I felt in this ethereal place was magnificent, but there was also love waiting for me back on Earth. Love that still had work to do, lessons to learn, growth to experience. As soon as this realization hit me, everything began to change. The vast space of understanding began to recede, not fading completely, but transforming. It was like watching a magnificent tapestry being folded away, except the memory of its pattern remained imprinted in my consciousness. The return was faster than the departure. There was a sudden rush, a sensation of being squeezed through a narrow space, and then an explosion of physical sensation. Pain returned. My God, the pain. But with it came the awareness of my body, the feeling of the hospital bed beneath me, the sound of machines beeping. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was a young doctor leaning over me, her face tense with concentration. "Welcome back," she said, relief evident in her voice. "You gave us quite a scare." I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. A nurse offered me ice chips, and after a moment I managed to ask, "How long?" "You were clinically dead for just over 2 minutes," the doctor answered. "The paramedics got your heart started again in the field, but you've been unconscious for several hours." 2 minutes. It seemed impossible. What I had experienced felt like both an eternity and a single moment. How could all of that have happened in just 2 minutes? The days and weeks that followed were challenging. Physical recovery was difficult. I had several broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a severe concussion. But the bigger challenge was integrating what had happened to me into my normal life. How do you go back to worrying about mortgage payments after you've experienced the fundamental nature of reality? How do you explain to your family that you're not the same person who left for work that morning? But gradually, I found a way to bridge those two worlds. The memory of that infinite love changed how I saw everything and everyone around me. I became more patient, more present, more aware of the miracle of each moment. I learned to see the divine in the ordinary, in my wife's sleepy morning face, in my son's concentrated frown as he did his homework, in my daughter's passionate arguments about climate change. The experience taught me that death isn't the end we fear it to be, but it also taught me that life, this seemingly mundane, sometimes difficult, often beautiful life, is an incredible gift. Every day since then has felt like bonus time, a chance to put into practice what I learned during those few minutes when I died. I still can't explain exactly what happened to me that day. Was it just my dying brain creating comforting hallucinations? Or did I truly glimpse something beyond our normal reality? I don't know for certain, but I do know that it changed me deeply and permanently. I came back with an unshakable understanding that love is the most real thing there is, that we are all connected in ways we can barely comprehend, and that every moment of life is precious beyond measure. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I can still feel echoes of that infinite love I experienced. It reminds me that underneath all our differences, all our struggles and conflicts, we are all part of something larger and more beautiful than we can imagine. And that knowledge makes every day, even the difficult ones, feel like a miracle.